Alright guys, 2007 Suburban. We've been driving it a little bit now that the fuel pump and everything's in, so we're not getting that elongated crank anymore. It starts up every single time. I did smoke the intake manifold. I used a smoke machine. You can get these off Amazon pretty cheap. So I had this smoke machine I hooked up, and I blew up the bladder that comes with it. I ran it through the intake manifold tube. I pulled this part off right here, ran it through here and blew the bladder up, turned the smoke machine on. Smoke started pouring out around the intake manifold runners just several minutes after starting the process. So I know for sure the intake manifold has to be pulled and resealed, and that was a common problem on these model GMs. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna pull this intake manifold. I've got a Felpro kit, really nice kit. It's got the nice big metal gaskets. Bunch of O-rings, throttle body. I'm assuming some EGR stuff, whatever in here. So whatever gaskets we come across that we need to change, we'll change while we're there. I ordered a Molly set, and that won't be here until the 2nd. So I said, you know what? I'm going to stop today and get the kit that they have in stock. I'm going to get this taken care of because I want to take this up north for the 4th of July next week, and I don't want to wait till the last minute to fix it. So let's get this apart and put new gaskets in it. I'm going to start with pulling this tube off. So I loosen this clamp here, loosen this clamp here, then I push this hose down out of this riveted fitting here, and then I pulled the vacuum tube off of the valve cover gasket, and now this is ready to basically slide out of here. Now I've got mainly intake manifold sitting in front of me right now. Now I got to start working on getting this wiring harness off the top of it, any connections off the top of it, getting it laid out of the way. I got a feeling I'm going to have to disconnect the fuel line, so I got to figure out where that is because I haven't figured that out yet. Oh, it's right there along that fuel rail in the back, and I don't think I have the tool for that, so I have to run down to the parts store and get it. I went ahead and disconnected the battery because as I'm pulling like tubes off the top of this thing and connectors off the top of it to get it out of there, I realized that main power wire that goes to the alternator needs to be pulled out of the way as well. So I disconnected the battery over there, and now I'm going to disconnect the main power wire going to the back of this alternator, which I think is a 13 millimeter. Alright, I've got fuel injectors disconnected all the way around. I got a PCV tube pulled loose. I have the harness as loose as I can possibly get it so I can pull it up and out of the way. I can try to slip this intake manifold out of there without having to mess with the harness that goes around the back. Now all I got to do is disconnect the fuel line and start pulling the 8 millimeter bolts loose around the intake manifold right there. These all the way around, and see if I can snake it out of there. Alright, I ran to the parts store and I grabbed an air ratchet while I was there because I didn't have an air ratchet at the house. So I just picked up a cheap performance tool. When I say cheap, I think it was like 65 bucks for it. My airline is not really big enough to supply enough air for this. It needs more air. It's not very efficient. I used like a 3-inch, 1/4-inch drive extension, tape 3/8 to 1/4 adapter, 3-inch extension, 8 millimeter deep socket, and then I used a 8 millimeter shallow socket with about a 6-inch 1/4-inch extension, and that's how I got all the bolts around the intake manifold loose. And now you can see it's loose. I just got to pull that fuel line off the back right there and then try to sneak this thing out of here. I also went down there and got this W83149 fuel and AC line disconnect tool kit. I like these better than the metal ones, so I'm going to use this to get the fuel line off. Now you can see the tool right there and how it's facing and the fuel line off. I should be able to snake this intake manifold out of here now. So I pulled the belt off and just left it hanging right there. Pulled 15 millimeter, loosened this one, pulled that one out, and then pried. I had to take a big long fat screwdriver, stick it underneath the side of the alternator and pry this up and out of the way so I can slide that intake manifold out of the front, because the corner of the alternator was blocking it. Alright, you can see here I got the intake manifold out and sitting forward, but there's also this vacuum tube that goes back here to this brake booster. There's a way you can fish that whole entire thing out together by just pulling this check valve out of the booster. It's going to make that vacuum sound. Now you can pull this whole thing out. Now that I've got the intake manifold out, see that oil pressure sensor right there in the back, that one single pressure connector itself? I would change that while I'm there. Eventually I'm going to pull this intake manifold back out of here, and I've got a set of DOD plugs. I want to plug the holes off. I've got an AFM deactivator inside there as well. So I'm going to actually, on my end, without fully deleting it, stop the system from actually working. So even if the solenoids do try to go off, the plugs are down in the valley where the oil supply goes, and it can't make it to where it needs to be. So the AFM just flat out doesn't work. It thinks it's working, but it's not. So I got those plugs in the house right now, and I got that oil pressure sensor in the house right now, but I don't have that lower gasket yet, so I'm not going to mess with it. But I am going to put the oil pressure sensor in there, clean all this up with a vacuum, and then get the new upgraded gaskets together, because you can tell these old nasty shitty ones are the old plastic style that rotted and fell apart and cracked, and they were just flat out no good. So yeah, no wonder why they were leaking. Plus, if you look at some of them are flat spotted. Yeah, so let's get everything back together, new oil pressure sensor and stuff in there, and then we'll see where we're at. Short-term fuel trim bank 2 is staying close to 0 all the time. Short-term fuel trim bank 1 staying close to 0 all the time. Well, the job went well. All the lean codes cleared. We took it out earlier and drove it for a little bit. We went to breakfast. We went, got ice cream, came back home, then went over to Grandma's house, had dinner and stuff with her, came back, been driving it around, and it's nothing, just perfect. Really, really nice. Those Felpro metal gaskets, they were very, very good. I cleaned the throttle body when I was here, put a new gasket and stuff in the throttle body, put a new PCV connection going down to the valve cover, PCV connection in the rear. Just running good, real good. No check engine lights, no nothing, so we got her fixed. You can see those big old beefy, you see the metal gaskets right there? See them right there. They sealed up real nice, so it all worked out like it was supposed to, and she's been running absolutely phenomenal. Starts up every time with the new fuel pump and stuff now. I couldn't be happier. We're going to take it out of town next week. Put an AFM disabler in it. So now it stays in V8 mode all the time. That's the update with the Suburban. Y'all be blessed. Take care. Love y'all. See you later.